My name is Michelle Posadas, and I work at Sparrow Key Puppet Theater.
Damn.
Well, currently we're sitting in the Sparrow Key Puppet Theater, and this is a Living Loft Museum. We like to think of it as a giant, I like to call it fancy storage, but basically it's a beautiful way to display the work that we've done over the past 11 years. Some puppets are that old, and some puppets are only like a month old or a couple years old. And this whole room is filled with stories of different people in the community that we've worked with all over Philadelphia and outside the Philadelphia area, and the stories they've told about their ideas, their messages, and their visions. At Sparrow Key Puppet Theater, what we do is we help mobilize communities by teaching them this techniques of using large-scale puppetry and pageantry, which has a long history of talking about politics and being involved in marches and rallies and demonstrations, and has a long history of social justice. And so what we do is we teach people these materials of using newspaper and paper mache and sculpting puppets, giant puppets, to translate ideas, to talk about what they feel passionate about, whether it's about, access to health care, folks with HIV/AIDS, or people who don't have access to affordable housing, and us being able to create these giant, visualizing their ideas and using art as a vehicle for social change. In general, Sparrow Key Puppet Theater works with like after-school programs, community gardens, community centers, senior centers, drug and alcohol recovery programs in the school system, after-school stuff, and we also work with the wide variety of activists in the city of Philadelphia. I've been the Justice Works coordinator for about 3 years now, and I've worked with a wide variety of folks. And the most recent people that I worked with that were really exciting was the Sierra Club. Though they're like a big giant national group, I worked with the Philadelphia chapter, and they were so great to work with. And we made this big giant beautiful Mother Earth puppet for Earth Day. And they basically have this big giant rally in centers in Old City, talking about it was called Step It Up Philly, asking Congress to put in legislation to decrease the amount of carbon emissions by 80% by 2050. Other groups I've worked with, for example, is Marching Bands for Peace. I've also worked with, today I'm going to work with Philadelphia Dyke March, Casino Free Philadelphia. We work with a number of college groups too, like Temple and Penn. For example, Penn has this group called Penn Faculty and Staff Against the War in Iraq. We've also worked with the Temple Anti-War Group. We've also worked with Students for Justice in Palestine. Worked with a number of anti-war groups and a number of anti-violence groups, and I feel like in the past couple of years the number of people I worked with in that sector has grown. Recently there was an amazing, giant, huge peace parade in Germantown Avenue, and it was really inspiring to work with this coalition of over 40 groups that were all mostly primarily in the Germantown area, and really cared about their neighborhoods and made this connection between the war in Iraq and also how the exact same things happening there is happening in our own country, in our own towns, and our own streets and neighborhoods. And I felt like it was really important to make that as a public demonstration, that there's not just this war going on there, there's violence happening in our own neighborhoods since last fall. We had the most murders per capita last year, and Philadelphia is a poor city, and it's wonderful to see that people are talking about it, not just about what's happening overseas, but what's happening in our own streets and stuff like that.